Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Dynamic Dilettante. And we've got May the 4th coming up. It's kind of a special edition for us where we'll be talking about the best and the worst of Star Wars. We've got a number of other things to cover as well this evening. We'll be touching on Moon Knight, which I'll withhold those thoughts. But it's great to have you along. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Where do we start with Star Wars? Something that so many of us grew up with. You know, and I was thinking about this, Katie. What was the first Star Wars movie that you actually saw in the theater? What did you go see in the theater?
None of them.
You never saw any of them in the theater?
I take that back. It wasn't until we hit the last set that I saw in the theater. So Force
Sure.
Awakens was actually the last one, or the first and only one I've seen in the theater.
Boy, what a sad record. That's the only one.
Yeah, because I was still in high school when the prequels came out, and then the first part of college. So no, I didn't get a chance to see him in the movie theater until Force Awakens, and that one wasn't my highlight.
No, I would agree with you in regard to that. And we're going to talk about the best and the worst because there are some really fantastic Star Wars movies and there are some that are just not all that good. And I think especially when you start getting into the prequels, those were pretty cringeworthy. And then you started getting into the later films, those just went totally sideways. They should have mapped everything out from the beginning and knew where they were going. And they clearly didn't do that. I think the movies suffered for that.
Yeah. It's kind of like they had one idea going into the main, the front end ones, and then after that, it was just kind of, we're just gonna do this.
Yeah, because you had one, the Emperor turns out in the later versions, the last few chapters, you've got the Emperor, and then suddenly that turns out, well, he's not really this guy. He's dead. Now it's Palpatine who was pulling the strings the whole time. I thought that was among some of the worst things I think that they did in the films. It just really went sideways. Whereas the initial trilogy really had a lot of force to it.
Yeah. Because I still think the best. I don't know though. I'm kind of fond of the Return of the Jedi.
Are you?
Yeah, that's probably my favorite one.
Honest. Because for me, I think it's Empire Strikes Back.
That one is good too.
Because there are so many elements in Empire Strikes Back that just rock. You've got Darth Vader. You've got the Emperor, of course, is in that. Ian McDiarmid is just incredible as the Emperor. And no, they brought him back in the later films because I think he was such a strong character. But he didn't belong there. That was, I think, a big mistake. You killed him at the the end of I forget the chapters. I started getting so goofed up. So they killed him at the end of episode 6. It was a mistake to bring him back, but he was definitely one of the best things going, I think, in those original films.
Oh yeah. And that's why I'm still hoping that they do a spin-off series on Disney Plus for Emperor Palpatine.
Which would not be a bad idea. I was excited to hear, and this is in the rundown tonight, I was excited to hear that he's going to be in the new Obi-Wan miniseries that Disney Plus is doing. So he's slated to return in that. I'm like, that's awesome. Because that's right in then the Emperor's heydays, if you will.
Right. But
great stuff.
I thought it was kind of interesting what they ended up doing though at the end of the help me out here. What's the name of the very, very last one? The Empire or the Jedi.
Oh. I should have wrote them down, honestly, because I need to have them right in front of me.
The Last Jedi.
Yes.
Thank God for Google. But yeah, no, I think it was interesting what they did with The Last Jedi, but to me, I'm just not a fan of the final trilogy. I don't really care for them myself. It just didn't seem to fit with the rest of them.
Yeah. I will watch them, and because I've watched worse. And but if I want to go back and I want to actually see Star Wars, then I'm going to be watching one of those original, one of the films in the first trilogy, because those are by far and away the best films.
Oh yeah, Empire Strikes Back is great. New Hope's great. But yeah, I don't know, just out of that entire series, my favorite one tends to be The Return of the Jedi. So,
which is pretty good too. They did a lot of fun stuff in that.
Yeah.
What were, as you pick out some of the best things then, as we talk about Star Wars, what are for you some of the best or the coolest things in Star Wars?
Darth Vader.
Hands down.
Hands down, Darth Vader.
I still think he's one of the best movie villains of all time.
Yeah, and that's what we were kind of talking about a couple of weeks ago. He also is, I don't know, just the whole screen presence. I mean, he's got to be one of the top just on-screen presence there are.
Yes.
But for me,
I think about him at the beginning of Empire Strikes Back, and you just see his feet, and he's walking along, and he walks, you found something, It's like, oh, here we go, baby. From the get-go. He was great.
I can definitely say probably the space battles are some of the coolest things in Star Wars.
Yes.
For me, it's actually not the lightsaber battles.
Really?
Nope. Those aren't my favorite. By far, it's definitely the space battles that they've got set up.
Because one of the things is we talk about the worst of Star Wars. I have a hard time choosing the worst of the movies because a number of them were bad. Phantom Menace being among them. One of the things that I loved was the lightsaber battles with Darth Maul and that Duel of the Fates playing. It was like, oh, that was wild.
Oh, the soundtrack for the entire series is great. I mean, that's good all the way around. But I absolutely, I think one of the most underrated things that's in Star Wars though is the care and just some of the scenes where they're doing some of the cut scenes to different environments, and you'll have like all of a sudden a band is stepping on something, or it's just the care that's taken with that. And like, I gotta say, one of the other best scenes in the entire movie, and it's been used time after time after time through there, is the whole cantina scene.
Agreed.
I mean, it really sets the stage, especially when you are just taking A New Hope and you see the cantina scene. I mean, it sets the scene for the whole movie. That you're definitely in a different place. You're in a different time. You're in, this isn't something, it's in a galaxy far, far away.
It really was like anything that had been done before. The mythology of Star Wars is, I think, incredible. And that's one of the gifts of, I think, some American films is like, this is American mythology. Mm-hmm. And George Lucas did it incredibly well. Some of my best things, I think, are things that you would probably, the lightsabers I thought were cool, and the lightsaber battles. But the whole idea of that having an energy weapon as a sword was a really remarkable idea at the time. Darth Vader, as we mentioned, the Emperor. I think the Emperor is one of the most memorable characters. Ian McDiarmid was incredible. The whole idea of the Force, before they started getting into you and I were talking about this earlier, the midichlorians and all of that. So, but the idea of the Force and then the Death Star, I thought was cool.
And they just didn't get that design right ever, did they?
Of what's that?
They never got the design right on the Death Star. They always left the vent. You would think that they would have had a shielded vent eventually.
Right. Yeah. And then large enough portals for ships to fly in and torpedo them.
But yeah, that whole deal where it was just nobody, the fact that it's science, like fantasy.
Yes.
It doesn't need an explanation for the Force. It just is. You set it up. Yep. They use the Force to like push stuff, do all the tricks and stuff like that.
Did they go overboard in trying to explain that, you think?
the whole midichlorian thing was never needed, and then it just became a thing after that because, of course, once it's in, now it's canon,
Right.
and it was just
Yeah,
But-
no. Yeah, I didn't think that were among the best. So when we talk about some of the other worst things, what do you think were some of your least favorite characters in Star Wars, in the Star Wars films?
Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, yeah, hands down. Because I was going to say Ewoks originally, because
No,
I didn't like the Ewoks at first, and
they grow on you.
yeah, they do. But when Jar Jar Binks came along, I went, oh yeah, okay. Now I've got a new character that I hate. Jar Jar Binks, he's it.
And that character was never, no, he never got good. Even when you watch through Clone Wars or anything else, Jar Jar Binks never got good.
No, you were never going to succeed with that character. The whole presentation and
Just stupid.
I'm glad you said it. Yes.
I don't care. I'll say it. Because I don't know how many times I've watched through Clone Wars now, but every time I watch an episode of Clone Wars, it was centered around Jar Jar Binks, and the whole thing was making him, more central to Naboo's representation.
Who cares?
Next episode.
Yeah, who cares? I think that's among the worst of the movies for me. That's it.
Yeah.
Was Clone Wars. It just was not good. Just did not enjoy it. It's the worst. And it's pretty tough to be the worst of the Star Wars films because there are a number of them that just didn't measure up.
But Greg, the pod races, it saved it all.
Yeah, Phantom Menace. And as I said, I would have chose Phantom Menace as the worst were it not for the Darth Maul character. And it's unfortunate that they killed him so early in the series.
But then they bring him back.
In the Star Wars animated, they do.
They bring him back in Clone Wars.
Which was pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that character. I thought there was so much there that had not been to explore and to discover. And yeah, he kind of got wasted with him, drifting down the cut in half.
And that seems to be one other design element of everything Star Wars is there's always one giant chasm everywhere.
Right.
And if you're going down, you're going down in a huge chasm.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, so I loved them. And for me, again, I was there from the beginning and going to see those movies. And then I was taking my kids to go see those movies, and which was a fun experience. I enjoyed that.
So who's your most underrated character on Star Wars?
That's a great question. I'm not sure that I know the most underrated character. What about you?
Oh, I've got two of them.
Go.
Grand Moff Tarkin.
Who was awesome.
Right. And
see, I don't think he was underrated at all.
I think he's underrated. I think he doesn't get as much screen time as he should, and I think they could have done a whole thing just with Grand Moff Tarkin.
I follow you.
And I think if I remember right, some of the graphic novels and some of the comics focus a little bit more on Grand Moff Tarkin and that whole. And Lando. Those are probably two of the most underrated characters. And
yeah, I thought there was a whole story there to explore.
Yeah. And
they tried to do that in Han Solo, a Star Wars story, which was, again, bad.
What movie are you talking about?
Right.
We just don't acknowledge that one ever existed.
Yeah. It's like me talking about what's his name is James Bond. Just don't.
Who?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly right. No, Grand Moff Tarkin, Peter Cushing was incredible.
Yeah.
And I thought he was just absolutely remarkable. And I went back and I was watching that scene where they're threatening Princess Leia in the original Star Wars, where he wants the location of the rebel base. And he was perfect for that role. I can't imagine anybody else in that. And I agree with you that I would have, it's one of the things I liked about Rogue Squadron when they did Rogue Rogue One, confusing it with the game. Rogue One, they brought back Grand Moff Tarkin, but it was all done digitally.
Yep.
But I thought, remembered how much I missed Peter Cushing in that role. It was absolutely great. And that was Rogue One, to me, was better than any of the so-called prequels that they made.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I thought it was good. It was a really nice way to bridge the gap between the prequels and the main set.
Absolutely. Yeah, and ending it with, Darth Vader, standing there and the information that he was looking for getting away from him, which is exactly where Star Wars then begins. Yep. I thought that was a really, really nice ending. And I would have enjoyed that ending of the prequel if they had made that as a prequel rather than with, the whole Hayden Christensen and Anakin Skywalker just did.
Because the prequels are pretty much just Anakin's
love story.
Yeah.
And he whines. And man, he's a whiny brat. What is there? Why you want to see something that's going to be compelling, that when he becomes Darth Vader, you recognize the tragedy of that. And I don't think they got there at all.
The one I did think it was kind of neat, though, that despite the prequels they did, how George Lucas went back and then they imaged in Qui-Gon Jinn and Anakin in the Return of the Jedi. That I thought they always did a good job with, was still.
Yes.
So even after they had completed that series, they still made it cohesive with the remainder of the movies. Although if there's one thing George Lucas definitely liked to do, though, is mess with movies after they were already out.
Yeah, who shot first? Was it Han or Greedo? Who shot first? How many times did he tweak that? He did. He tweaked it a number of times.
Yeah, I think it was at least 3 times, if I remember right.
So we all know the original footage. Han shot in fact, Han was the only shot.
Yep.
Han shoots. Boom. That's it. One shot. Han, Greedo's dead. That was it.
But if I remember correctly, the reason they retweaked it is because it looked better that he did it in self-defense versus just cold-blooded murder. No.
Yeah, versus blowing up the Empire blowing up a planet.
Well,
I mean, good.
But they're evil. They're the Empire.
About committing absolute genocide against an entire people. I mean, wow. So that's kind of, to me, that's where George Lucas went sideways with all of these films and going back and changing and leave it alone. Leave it alone. It is what you put out there. And if you want then to soften the character, do it in the movie. Do it in the movie that we see, okay, has he changed? Is he a different person than he was at the beginning?
Yeah.
I mean, I like to see that in movies that I go into. How is this character different at the end of the movie than they were at the beginning of the movie?
Well, and that's what you see with like Darth Vader in the main set of movies.
Absolutely. But no, we'll go in and
got to use that industrial light and magic money.
It's old. What else do we need to add on Star Wars? Anything? We touch it all, or
what's your favorite spin-off series that they've done? Because Lord knows they love to do those.
I actually, while I did not like the Clone Wars, I did like the animated series they did of Clone Wars.
Yep.
I think it had a lot of the thoughtfulness that movie did not have. I enjoyed that. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, the Clone Wars is probably even better done. If I sit down and look at the whole catalog, or for the spin-off series, I would pick Clone Wars with the exception of the last season.
Why do you say that?
Because that's where Disney went in and decided to do a Disney and started monkeying with things and did what they always do is, oh my gosh, now the kid's the savior of everything.
Right.
And I know they were going in there to set up Ahsoka to show up in The Mandalorian and also set up Ahsoka to show up, or excuse me, and set up Bad Squadron. And then there was one other one they set up, but I can't remember it off. But that just got old.
And I see Ahsoka's getting her own live show now.
Yes. Yep. I think they
I
started
just saw that in the
production on
last
it.
few days.
Yep. They started production on it.
Which doesn't surprise me, the audience that they're shooting at.
No. But it's no different than like Star Trek Prodigy. I mean, they're just trying to get younger a younger audience involved. But
which is fine. And I understand that, that you're gearing that to a younger crowd.
How about you? Spinoff series, yay, nay?
Yeah. Like I say, I did like the Clone Wars. Some of the other Bad Company, not so much. I don't and I watched that, and they, as you were talking about, making it for a younger audience, they've got a young girl traveling with them, changes the whole complexion, and that for me got old really fast.
Yeah.
So,
but there were still some things that they did well in those couple of closing seasons of Clone Wars. I think it was nice how they tied it up with the Order 66.
yes.
And then how Vader comes back to forget what planet they're on when that is, but I think that's kind of nice how I think it's Hoth even that they're over, but I think that's cool how they tie that all in. I honestly, I think I'd still pick it over The Mandalorian.
You would?
Yes.
Honestly.
Yep.
Because I did like The Mandalorian, but it, you and I talked about it at the time, slow starter. And I saw that with Boba Fett. And in going back, I would have to say I would not watch Boba Fett again. It would not be one of those movies where I want to go back and I want to see that again.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not going to go back and revisit much of this stuff.
No.
Kind of maybe The Mandalorian, I would. There are parts of it I would go back and watch some of it. But some of the stuff they're creating now, to me, it's tough to watch the first time, let alone repeat viewings.
Well, the one I just don't like is sorry, got a echo trying to get squared away here. It follows that stupid Disney format where we're going to put out 6 episodes or 8 episodes or whatever. We're going to slow drag the first 4 and then cram everything into the last 2,
right,
which we'll talk about here in a minute.
Moon Knight.
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
But yeah, that bothers me. They did it with Boba Fett. They did it with Mandalorian. They did it with the episodes they added to Clone Wars. They did it with they do it with every other Marvel series they add.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with you. The which maybe that kind of brings us into Moon Knight.
Sure.
Talk about Moon Knight.
Sure.
Because we've not seen the last episode yet. That what hits tomorrow, tonight at midnight, or tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So that will hit tomorrow. What do you think of the Moon Knights? And I've been critical of Moon Knight. One of the last times you and I talked about this, I said, yeah, this isn't very good. They're losing me. And I've changed my mind.
Episode 5's a little confusing. I had to watch it. I had to go back a couple of times, but then once you start picking up on what they're putting down, it's not that bad. I'm trying not to do spoilers here, since it is pretty new.
No,
but
understood.
I like it. It brought me back. I'm gonna say it's kind of like you. It brought me back. it'll be interesting to see what they do at the end of it. But again, you still don't see Moon Knight.
Yeah, I would agree. And those were some of the criticisms we had previously, is that you're not seeing Moon Knight much. What I enjoyed about the most recent episode, and again, without spoiling it, is there's a pretty compelling psychological drama going on. And I didn't expect that. I really didn't expect that at all. You really get into the story of these two characters, and what's been happening and how that transpired. And, it really has made the story human in a, I thought, really kind of compelling way.
Yeah.
So it was the first time I found myself going, all right, okay, this is intriguing. Now, I still don't know that it's a good Moon Knight story. As we've talked about previously, I've never read the Moon Knight comic, so I don't have a lot of background that I bring to it. I just, know what I'm seeing in the show. And as a superhero kind of action adventure show, it's been lacking in that department. It's slow, plodding, but as a psychological kind of drama, it's like, wow. And I wound up in this last episode really getting pulled into what was going on. So I have changed my mind, from what I said previously. It's like, it just has not gone the direction that I thought it would at all.
No, it's that last episode that last episode actually kind of gave me more of a feeling of that the Joker, actually.
Yeah.
The standalone Joker movie.
Yes.
Just kind of how Mark and Steven are dealing with their psych issues, and what's real, what's not real. And it's totally
That's
not
a
what
great point. I hadn't seen that. Very good.
It's one of those ones where he's working his way through madness, but you never quite figure out who's who and what's real, what's not real.
Or is he working his way through madness or not,
Right.
And that's where I think this series is been really successful.
Yes.
In that regard, which again, it's not a typical superhero movie, or even kind of the anti-hero, by any means at all. Hi, Rocco.
He always comes around after about 30 minutes.
Yeah, he wants attention.
Yep.
Our dog.
Yeah, more than 20 minutes, he's got to have his attention.
Right.
They actually released a specific trailer just for the Moon Knight episode that's releasing tomorrow, and I think you can find it on any Disney, or you just Google it. Yeah. I didn't happen to grab a link for it, but it's interesting. They list it as a season finale. They don't list it as a series finale, so I wonder if it's going to get rebooted. That I don't know if it's going to get rebooted or not.
Or you mean whether they're going to carry on, make the series?
Yeah. Let's see if I can.
That's not quite a reboot, because they're not a reboot is when you're remaking one.
Yes. Let's see if.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that last episode. It was not what I expected, not at all what I expected. And I was just patient. I said, okay, but it was intriguing enough that I said, all right, this is got my attention, what they're doing here. So as I mentioned, I was kind of surprised in a very good kind of way by what they did with it.
Yeah, here's an article that was released yesterday. Marvel Studios will soon bring its sixth and final episode, Moon Knight. But they accidentally leaked on Twitter yesterday that Moon Knight season 2 could be on the way.
That's hardly an accidental leak, despite that headline. Well, they accidentally leaked this on Twitter.
Yeah. Here.
It was
season finale instead of series finale.
Gotcha. Yes. Which is what I expected. I expected that this was going to go into additional seasons.
I figured it.
But I do think they need to pick up the action adventure if that's the case.
Yeah. Because a lot of these ones that they're releasing here recently, again, it just follows that same formula. Doesn't matter if you're talking Star Wars, Marvel, whatever. It's 6 or 7 episodes. First few are slow, and then they're going to cram everything into those last 2.
Yeah.
Pick one, and I guarantee it follows that formula. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. Watch it tomorrow night. For some reason, I thought today was Wednesday, and here I'm like, oh, great. Hey, we can watch it before we do it. Not realizing it's only Tuesday today.
Yeah, my days get turned around like that all the time.
So it looks like we'd heard Neil Adams passed away.
I was sorry to hear this. Neil Adams was honestly, he was an incredible comic book artist. And he was one of the really driving forces of Batman once they got out of the Batman kind of television show, trying to get out of the shadow of the Batman TV series following the 60s. Neil Adams was an incredible force, and he did a lot of work that's worthy of note, but he passed away. Died last Thursday. He was 80 years old. And I want to give a nod here to the folks at Collider. Collider has got a story on Neil Adams, and they say that Adams' most famous contribution to the industry was his run on Batman with writer Dennis O'Neil in the 1970s. They were the driving force that changed the narrative that was set by the campy Adam West Batman TV series. Adams' art was known for its more realistic approach, and their darker stories paved the way for the character that we know today, which is exactly what Neil Adams did. I've got some of the old Batman comic books, and these are the photos that you're going to see here. These are actually my comic books. And it shows Neil Adams' art. This one in particular, I really like. It's one of his early ones that he did for Batman. And there's something about him. At this point, it was Batman was into the Wayne Foundation. So he closed up Wayne Manor. That's why he's telling Alfred, let's close up the Batcave, seal it up forever. He's going to the Wayne Foundation, which is in the heart of Gotham City. And he had an alternate Bat Cave at the Wayne Foundation, and that's the episode, or that's the comic book that kicked that off. This is another Neil Adams classic, Ra's al Ghul. This is among the first appearances of Ra's al Ghul. This one is not the first appearance, but it's among. But that cover is absolutely iconic. This is another. More artwork by Neil Adams. This one from Batman, and I just really, really love his style and the way that he draws. That's a great story too, by the way. This one of the things, Two-Face was introduced, and he had been absent from the comic books for quite a period of time. He was around in the 50s, and then he was absent for a very large period of the 60s and then into the 70s, and they brought Two-Face back, and you could see Neil Adams' really distinctive kind of artwork. I love this. This a great episode, or a great comic book, great story. And Man-Bat is one of the many characters that he worked on. And you see Adams really, I think, great. These next two, this one and the next one. This one I really like as well, Man or Bat. So the Man-Bat, that was a very significant character then through the 1970s, the Man-Bat, and continues to be. Was not only in the Batman the Animated Series, but then the Batman by Warner Brothers and others. Great characters that There's the first appearance of Ra's al Ghul. In the background there, you see Ra's. That's really a great comic book as well, and his artwork is just stunning. And then you see here a take. This is actually from last year. Neil Adams did a and I think I put these out of sequence for you.
Oh,
hit the next one.
That's it.
Oh, we lost one. Yeah, there's one with the Joker holding the card and Batman's on the card. But that's all right. Kick that one up there because Neil Adams did this last year.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a tribute to his earlier cover in which Joker is holding the card and Batman is on the card. And that's that's really, really a great story. But Neil, in fact, I got a poster hanging on my wall of that, the cover of that comic book. There it is. There you go.
Yep.
Because it's absolutely iconic. And that story is very good. And what he did with the Joker was it was no more there was a really kind of dangerous element to the Joker that we had not seen previously. Yeah, he was a lunatic. He was crazy, but Neil Adams was really able to capture I think that character in a really significant way. So I would be remiss if we did not, honestly, because his artwork, I'm still collecting. Some of the comic books that I'm buying right now are right in that period, and collecting the artwork. He did a number of others. He did some work on. He's known for his work on the Green Lantern, Green Arrow series that was done a number of years ago. This is in the 1970s, and they were dealing with drug issues in that series, drug addiction, racism, overpopulation. There was a Batman issue as well, dealing with racism. He did a pretty remarkable job during the time he was at DC Comics, bringing those issues to life. So, bid farewell and a big thank you to Neil Adams and for his many, many contributions.
So, what do you say for the rundown?
For the rundown. All right, here we go. These are odds and ends and bits and pieces that we picked up from all over fandom. In brief, and I loved hearing this, I mentioned this earlier, actor Ian McDiarmid going to return as Emperor Palpatine in the upcoming Obi-Wan TV series. That's coming out fast. May 27th is when Obi-Wan will debut. First 2 episodes will be out. The Batman 2 officially in development. CW has canceled Batwoman after 3 seasons. I tell you, I tried watching that. I tried watching Batwoman. I lasted for less than 15 minutes. It was not good. That thing should have been shown the door a lot sooner. They also canceled Legends of Tomorrow, which I did watch, and I watched several seasons of that. Actually liked that. Legends of Tomorrow being canceled after 7 seasons. Rumors have been swirling that Sam Raimi could be back to direct Spider-Man 4. And we're talking about Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man 4. So, but as soon as that news came out, yeah, it's looking like that will not happen, but Raimi had kind of opened the door to it. The next day he shut the door pretty hard. Whether or not that's going to happen. Zachary Quinto says he's open to making Star Trek 4. Remember I told you recently, Chris Pine says, yeah, he's open to making Star Trek 4. Well, neither one of them Paramount hasn't talked to either one of them yet. So it makes you wonder if a fourth Star Trek installment is being driven more by fans than it actually is by Paramount Plus. We'll wait and see. And then we are hours away, literally hours, people, away from the start of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. That show debuts on Thursday this week. And the most that I've seen, at least so far, are special effects shots of the new Enterprise. And I got to say, that makes it feel like Star Trek the Motion Picture kind of all over again. Did we know what a disaster that was? And that's the rundown this week.
I don't know. We watched the 4K reboot this weekend, and
what did you think
of Star Trek the Motion Picture? I thought it was pretty good. A lot better than the original.
Yes. Now, in fairness, that's not hard. But honestly, completing all those shots, there was a lot that they pulled out of that, because there's a Star Trek director's cut, newly restored, and which is in theaters coming up this weekend. You can find it in theaters across the country, in some select theaters. And I thought, well, it'd be great to see. And I thought, you know what? Nah, I've already seen that movie in the theaters enough. So you and I watched it, and the new version I liked. They really cleaned it up. It's brighter. It's there's a lot of changes, even in sound effects and so on. But it's much better than the original film as released.
Well, if I remember right, you said you weren't too fond of some of the sound effects they used, though, in the new one.
No. Actually, the DVD that I have, because they have actually changed it since they came out with the director's edition DVD, and that's been a number of years ago, like 2000, whatever, 2004, something maybe like that. So it's been out for quite a while. Now they're doing and what do you call it? The high end.
The director's cut.
Well, in the
4K.
HD, 4K,
remastered
HD, all of that stuff. And it is brighter, I will say this, than the version that I have. It is brighter. You have a better sense of what's going on. But yeah, they have tweaked even sound effects from what they had done previously. It was pretty noticeable. But a definite improvement over the original box office, because they rushed that thing to the movie theater. They didn't know whether they would get the print. Yeah. I'm talking about the print that they put on the projector and show to the audience. They didn't know whether they'd get the print to the theater in time to show it to the audience. That's how close it was.
Oh.
Well, that's typical Gene Roddenberry. That's why, honestly, he had a great influence on Star Trek. Don't miss him in as far as movies, and that's a big part of the reason why.
Oh, about some
The Cave of Wonders.
Huh? Cave of Wonders?
Oh, the Cave of Wonders. This is a clock that I've got a couple of these, but this is excuse me, my phone's getting all goofed up here. This is from 1975. It's a Jan X Batman alarm clock. And I've got two of these. I initially had bought one out of the package, which I really, really like. And then later I decided I wanted to have one in the package, really in great condition, still working. To my knowledge, both of these still work. But when I say work, there's a little plastic disc inside of this talking alarm clock that when your alarm goes off, that disc spins. And I don't want to call it a stylus, but it's like a stylus that plays the thing.
I'll give you an
Still makes
idea.
me laugh to hear that. Good boy, Robin. Very well said. This is so Batman of the TV show and of that time period. And you would have found back in the day, these are products you would have found at Kmart more than anywhere else. Kmart carried a lot of this stuff. And so Janet, I love that clock. I just think it's among my favorites. Are we done for this week? Is that all we've got?
That's everything I had on the rundown.
Well, thank you so much. If you liked the show tonight, we hope you'll give us a thumbs up, that you'll like it, that you'll subscribe, that you'll tune in again. We do this every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time. Love having you here. So please, but it's important to us to subscribe, to like, or thumbs. If you didn't like it, you want to send a comment to us, please do so. We appreciate those very much. Try to respond to those. Thank you so much for being here. So long until next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.